Good morning, everyone. So we'll be continuing our module 1 lecture series with CPU scheduling algorithms. Today we will be seeing the shortest job first scheduling algorithm. As we have already seen in the previous lecture that the scheduling algorithms can follow both the preemptive as well as the non-preemptive schemes. So in non-preemptive scheme, what we do once the CPU is given to the process, it cannot be preempted until that process complete its CPU burst. Whereas in preemptive, if a new process arrives, we are talking about the shortest job first algorithm. So in shortest job first algorithm, what we do, we give the priority to that process which has got lower CPU burst or smaller CPU burst. So if a new process arrives with CPU burst length less than the remaining time of the current executing process, then the current executing process will be preempted. Or in other words, we will take the CPU from the current running process and allot that CPU to the new process because its CPU burst is less. That is why, right? So this scheme is known as the shortest remaining time first, also known as shortest remaining time next, SRTN, also known as preemptive SJF. Okay, so in shortest job first algorithm, we follow both the scheme, the preemptive as well as the non-preemptive. Now, shortest job first is the optimal algorithm. It means that it gives the minimum average waiting time for a given set of processes for all the scheduling algorithms. Now let us take an example. Suppose we have got 4 processes, P1, P2, P3, and P4. The arrival time of P1 is 0 unit time interval. P2 is 1 unit. P3 arrives after 2 unit time interval. P4 arrives after 3 unit time interval. And the CPU burst time of P1 is 8 unit. P2 is 5, P3 is 2, and P4 is 5. So if we draw the Gantt chart for the same, then since we are dealing with non-preemptive shortest job first algorithm, it means once we will allot the CPU to any process, then we will not take back the CPU from it until the complete CPU burst is exhausted for that particular process. So at 0th time interval, we are having only single process, that is process P1. So we have got no other choice else than to allot the CPU to process P1. So we have allotted the process P1, the CPU. It has got the CPU burst time of 8 unit. So from 0 to 8, P1 will be executing. Now, after 8 units, we are having the choice P2, P3, and P4 because P2 has already arrived after 1 unit, P3 has arrived after 2 unit time interval, and P4 has arrived after 3 unit time interval. So now among these P2, P3, and P4, we will make a choice with for that process which has got the smallest CPU burst. So among P2, P3, and P4, we can see that P3 has got only 2 unit time interval CPU burst. So this is the smallest CPU burst. We will choose P3 next. So from 8 to 10, P3 will be executing. Now after that, we are left with only 2 choices, P2 and P4, because P1 and P3 has already completed their execution. So P2 and P4 both have the CPU burst time of 5 unit time interval. Now, since both are having the same CPU burst, so we will now follow the FCFS scheme, that is first come, first serve. So P2 has arrived first, so we will next allot the CPU to process P2. So from 10 to 15, P2 will be executing, and from 15 to 20, then next P4 will be executing. Okay. Now let us calculate the waiting time for all the individual processes. So P1 has arrived after 0 unit time interval, and we have also given the CPU after 0 unit time interval. So its waiting time is 0 in the ready queue. Process P2 has arrived after 1 unit time interval, but we have allotted the CPU to process P2 after 10 units time interval. So 10 minus 1, that is 9 will be the waiting time for P2. Similarly, P3 has arrived after 2 unit time interval, and we have allotted the CPU to P3 after 8 units time interval. So P3 waiting time will be 8 minus 2, that is 6. And P4 has arrived after 3 unit time interval, and we have allotted the CPU to process P4 after 15 units time interval. So its waiting time will be 15 minus 3, and that is equal to 12. So now average waiting time is 0 plus 9 plus 6 plus 12 divided by 4, which is equal to 6.75. So this shortest job first algorithm, non-preemptive SJF, is giving us the average waiting time of 6.75. Now let us see the preemptive version of this SJF, also known as SRTF, that is shortest remaining time first, or SRTN, that is shortest remaining time next. So again, the same scenario. Process P1, P2, P3, P4, arrival time is 0, 1, 2, 3, and burst time is 8, 5, 2, and 5. Now, at 0th time interval, we are having only one choice, single choice, that is process P1. So we have allotted the CPU to P1. Okay. But after 1 unit time interval, P2 has also arrived. Now, P1 has already executed 1 unit time interval. So now the remaining time of P1 is 7 units. Okay. And the new process which has arrived, that is P2, its CPU burst time is 5. So we have to make a choice between P1 and P2. P1 with a remaining time of 7, and P2, the total CPU burst time is 5. So a smaller CPU burst is that of P2. So we will take the CPU from the P1 and allot it to P2. Okay. Now after 2 unit time interval, P3 has also arrived, right? So P2 has already executed from 1 to 2, that is 1 second, or 1 unit time interval has already completed of P2. So now P2 remaining time is 4 unit time interval. P1 remaining time is 7 unit time interval. And the new process which has arrived just now is P3, which CPU burst time is 2. So 7, 4, and 2. So among these three, P3 has got the smallest CPU burst. So we will again take the CPU from the P2 and give it to P3. Okay. Now, after 3 unit time interval, P4 has also arrived. So now let us see what are the remaining times of P1, P2, P3. So P1 remaining time is 7, P2 remaining time is 4, and P3 remaining time is 1. And the new process P4, which has arrived, has got the CPU burst time of 5. So the smallest CPU burst is that of P3 only. So we will continue P3. Okay. So P3 will be continuing till 4 unit time interval, and now P3 is completed its CPU burst. Okay. So now we are left with 3 choices, that is P1, P2, and P4. P1 with 7, P2 with 4, and P4 with 5. So now among P1, P2, and P4 with 7, 4, and 5, P2 has got the smallest CPU burst, that is of 4 unit time interval. So next we will choose process P2. So P2 will be allotted the CPU from 4 to 8. Now P2 is also completed. We are left with 2 choices, P1 and P4. P1 with 7 unit time interval and P4 with 5 unit. Smaller CPU burst is that of P4. So P4 will be allotted next. So from 8 to 13, P4 will be executing. And then from last process is P1, whose remaining time is 7 units. So from 13 to 20, P1 will be executed. So this will be the Gantt chart for preemptive SJF. Now let us calculate the waiting time for the same. So P1 has arrived after 0 unit time interval, and we have allotted the CPU to P1 after 0 unit time interval. So here the waiting time of P1 is 0. So please look here. So the remaining time of so the waiting time of P1 is 0, but we have taken the CPU from P1 after 1 unit time interval. And next we have allotted the CPU to P1 after 13 unit time interval. So it had to wait in the ready queue for this duration from 1 to 13. So the waiting time will be 13 minus 1. So 13 minus 1 plus 0, that is 12. So the total waiting time of P1 is 12. Now let us see P2. So P2 has arrived after 1 unit time interval, and we have allotted the CPU after 1 unit time interval. So here the waiting time of P2 will be 0. Okay. But after 2 unit time interval, we have taken the CPU from P2 and given to the P3. Next, we have allotted the CPU to P2 after 4 unit time interval. So it had to wait from 2 to 4, that is 4 minus 2. So the total waiting time for P2 will be 2. Now P3 has come after 3 unit time interval, and we have allotted, P3, the arrival time of P3 is after 2 unit time interval, and we have allotted the CPU to P3 after 2 unit time interval, that is the waiting time is 0. But P3 has got only the CPU burst of 2 unit time interval, and we have completed it in one stretch. That is, no more further allotment was required for P3. So here the total waiting time for P3 will be 0 only. Now P4 has arrived after 3 unit time interval. So we have allotted the process P4 the CPU after 8 unit time interval. So from it had to wait from after 3 unit, it was waiting till 8 units. So 8 minus 3, that is 5 millisecond or 5 unit time interval will be the waiting time for P4. So average waiting time now is 12 plus 2 plus 0 plus 5 divided by 4, which is coming to be 4.75. So we can see here that the shortest job first algorithm is the optimal algorithm, and it gives us the minimum waiting time among the set of processes when compared with any other scheduling algorithm. But here, see that the preemptive SJF has got the average waiting time of 4.75, whereas the average waiting time of non-preemptive SJF is 6.75. So among the SJF itself, the preemptive SJF will give better average waiting time than the non-preemptive SJF. That is, the preemptive SJF algorithm will be the optimal algorithm as compared to non-preemptive SJF also. Okay. Fine. So next algorithm which we will be studying is the round robin scheduling algorithm. This algorithm is normally used when we have got the multiple users and we allot a small time slice to every user, so that each and every user will feel like that he has got the CPU with himself all the time, because the switching is so fast. So the user feels like that the CPU is with him only all the time. So let us see, let us take an example. So the time slice we have allotted is, let us say, 3 milliseconds to every process. We have got the 4 processes. Arrival time of all the processes are 0, 0. That is, at 0 time interval, all the processes are available. The CPU burst of P1, P2, P3, P4 are 8, 5, 2, and 4. So the time slice of 3 milliseconds will be allotted to every process in a round robin fashion. Okay. So first of all, in sequence, P1 has arrived first. So we will allot 3 unit time interval to P1. So out of 8 unit time interval, we have executed 3 unit time interval. So remaining time of now P1 is 5 unit. P2 is also allotted then 3 units time interval. So now after execution of 3 unit, we are remaining with 2 unit time interval for P2. P3 is also allotted 3 unit time interval, but here the total CPU burst of P3 is 2 only. So we will not allot the time slice of 3 milliseconds. We will allot only the 2 unit time interval, and the remaining 1 unit of that time slice we will utilize for the next process, that is P4. Okay, so P3 will be executing from 6 to 8, and after 8 we will allot the CPU to P4. So P4 will be executing for 3 unit. So remaining time will be now 1 unit of P4 after execution. Now P2 is P3 process has finished. P1, P2, and P4 are remaining. We have completed one cycle, one round of cycle for P1, P2, P3, and P4. So now next again we will allot the CPU to process P1. So P1 will be allotted 3 unit again. So 3 millisecond has already been executed here, and after this execution 6 milliseconds have completed. So now we are remaining with only 2 milliseconds for P1. Now P2 has already been executed 3 milliseconds, so remaining time is 2. So after P1 we will allot the remaining 2 millisecond to P2. So 14 to 16 P2 will also be completed. So now P2 and P3 both are completed. P4 has already been executed for 3 unit time interval. So remaining time was only 1 unit. So after that, we will allot the process P4 from 16 to 17, that is 1 unit time interval. Now P4 is also finished, and we are left with only one choice, that is P1. And P1 has already executed 2 times, that is 6 milliseconds. So remaining time is 2 milliseconds. So from 17 to 19, we will execute process P1, and now all the processes are completed. Okay. So now let us calculate the waiting time for the same. So process P1 waiting time is 0. At 0 time interval, we are having all the P1, P2, P3, and P4. So we have allotted the CPU to P1, at 0 time interval. So here the waiting time is 0. But after 3 unit time interval, we have taken the CPU back from the P1, and then next we have allotted the process P1 the CPU after 11 units. Okay, so the waiting time will be 11 minus 3. After execution of 3 units, that is after 14 unit time interval, we have again taken back the CPU from P1, and then we have reallocated the CPU to process P1 after 17 milliseconds. So here again, it had to wait from 14 to 17, that is 17 minus 14. So adding all these things will give us 11. So total waiting time for P1 in the ready queue while waiting for the CPU is 11 milliseconds. Now for process P2, we have allocated the CPU after 3 milliseconds. So first of all, the waiting time will be 3 minus 0. Next, we have taken back the CPU from P3 after 8 milliseconds, and we have, from P2 after 6 milliseconds, and then we have reallocated the CPU to process P2 after 14 milliseconds. So the waiting time will be from 6 to 14, so 14 minus 6. So total waiting time for P2 now becomes 3 plus 8, that is 11. Now P3 executed only once because its total CPU burst was 2 millisecond only. So one time slice was enough for P3. So we have allocated the CPU to P3 after 6 millisecond. So the waiting time for P3 will be 6. Now P4 we have allocated after 8 milliseconds. So first of all, the waiting time is 8 millisecond. After 11 milliseconds, we have taken the CPU and we have reallocated the CPU to P4 after 16 milliseconds. So the waiting time will be 16 minus 11 again. So 8 plus 16 minus 11, that is 13. So now let us calculate the average waiting time. So sum of all these divided by 4, which gives us 10.25. So 10.25 millisecond is the average waiting time for the round robin algorithm. So we can see here, if we compare now SJF and this round robin, so SJF is far better. SJF is giving us far better performance than the other algorithms. Like in round robin, it is 10.25, while we can see in the preemptive SJF, we are having only 4.75 average waiting time, and in the non-preemptive SJF, we are having 6.75 milliseconds average waiting time. Though the scenario was same, arrival time was same, CPU burst was same of all the processes, right? Okay. So that is all for this lecture, and we will continue with other CPU scheduling algorithms in the next lecture. Thank you.